Grab some food and let's practice intuitive eating.
Intermittent fasting can be more effective than a calorie deficit alone, but it needs to be done correctly in order to see lasting results.
Okay, so I saw this girl on TikTok and she was saying that if you eat pretty healthy and you work out and you feel like your body still doesn't look the way it's supposed to look, it's probably because you're not eating enough protein. And I just want to say thank you.
In recent years, we have seen a huge rise in interest in healthy living because nowadays more and more people are learning about movement, nutrition, and self-care, trying to understand how to feel better in their bodies and in their daily lives. And so naturally, this growing interest has brought a lot of new trends on social media, especially when it comes to nutrition. And on one hand, that's kind of great, right? Because more people are getting inspired to eat better and build healthier habits. But on the other hand, there is also a lot of confusion and misinformation hiding behind it. And so today I want us to take a closer look at some of the nutrition trends, so you can get a better and deeper understanding of what's really going on and what might actually be better to leave behind. If you're new here, my name is Anastasia, and here on my channel we talk about social media trends, recent events, and all things wellness. And before we dive into today's topic, I just want to remind you to like this video and follow me here on YouTube not to miss any future uploads, and of course to support my channel and support my work. And well, now get comfortable and let's already get started. Well, we all know that healthy eating isn't that complicated, right? Because the rules are pretty simple. Just try to stay hydrated, have balanced meals, eat a variety of colorful foods to get different nutrients and vitamins, and of course try to avoid highly processed foods. But for some reason, even though it looks kind of easy, a lot of people still find it difficult to follow these basic rules and really struggle with their nutrition. And so of course it's not surprising that every year we see new nutrition trends and tips popping up, promising quick results and easier ways to reach our health and body goals. Because we want it or not, it's in our nature to avoid stress and effort and look for simpler, easier ways. And on one hand, the amount of advice and trends out there can be overwhelming and confusing, because it's really hard to know what is gonna work for you personally. But on the other hand, some of the trends really stood out over time, becoming widely shared and deeply ingrained in our society. And so let's take a look at 5 of the most popular nutrition trends and of course discuss what's really going on with them. If you've ever tried to lose weight, you have probably come across intermittent fasting. The idea sounds pretty simple. You can enjoy all your favorite foods, but only during a specific window of time. And the most common way people do it is by eating within 8 hours and then fasting for 16. And on one hand, I know it may sound like a flexible and easy way of eating, right? Because there are no strict rules when it comes to food, there is no calorie counting. But on the other hand, it is still a form of restriction. I mean, will it help you to lose weight? Sure, most probably, but not because of some magical effect of fasting on your body, but simply because you end up eating less in general. And that's just something you can achieve by staying in a calorie deficit without limiting yourself to a specific time window. Secondly, I want you to understand that even though this way of eating technically allows you to eat whatever you want during your eating hours, it still doesn't matter that food quantity or quality aren't really important. You still need to have balanced meals, plenty of nutrients and vitamins, and of course to be aware of your calorie intake, because if you constantly overeat, you will gain weight. And lastly, I guess most importantly, intermittent fasting can feel a bit extreme for some people because it's not something that naturally fits into every lifestyle. So should you try it or not? Really depends on you. If you can handle long hours without food, if you don't have any health issues, intense physical activity, high levels of stress, for example, if you don't have breakdowns and overeat afterwards, then it can actually work for you. But if this way of eating makes you feel anxious, irritated, tired, stressed, if you don't have energy, if you don't feel productive, if you think about food all the time, then it's actually better to skip this one. The trend clean eating basically means eating foods as close as possible to their natural state, meaning whole, natural, maybe even homegrown. It means preparing meals from the scratch and of course staying away from processed foods. You can actually see this trend widely shared among tradwives, for example. And because clean foods are rich in nutrients, of course it comes with lots of benefits. For instance, your digestion improves, your skin looks better, your energy level rises. It also helps you to feel lighter, to be more productive, to sleep better, to strengthen your immune system, to support brain health, and of course, it helps you to manage your weight. But the first problem with this trend is that people often start dividing foods into good and bad. And unfortunately, when you start labeling foods, it's easy to begin associating your self-worth with what you eat. For example, while you're eating clean, you may feel proud of yourself, confident, motivated, because everything is under control. But the moment you eat something bad, you can immediately start feeling guilty, ashamed, or anxious, for example, like you failed yourself or something, which is a pretty common scenario because despite its benefits, the nature of clean eating is still restrictive. And that's why this way of eating can easily turn into an obsession, constant label reading, fear of certain foods, avoiding social events, punishing yourself for not eating clean, etc. And so, of course, all of this creates a lot of tension and stress in your life, which are way more harmful to your body than a piece of chocolate or slice of pizza. Secondly, because you constantly live in this pressure to eat clean, you create a huge cognitive load on your brain, which blocks serotonin production, a hormone responsible for relaxation, good sleep, and good mood. And of course, it just makes you more anxious. And naturally, when we are anxious, we tend to comfort ourselves with tasty foods, So if your goal, for example, is to lose weight, it's gonna be really difficult for you because you end up living in constant fear and stress around food, and making any changes while you're stressed is basically mission impossible. So adapting this way of eating can really boost your overall health, but only if you already have a healthy relationship with food. It's really hard not to notice how much interest in protein has grown over the past few years. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense because consuming enough protein has so many benefits. For example, protein is really good for managing weight because it helps us to stay full longer, which reduces snacking, right? It helps us to maintain and build muscle. It supports our metabolism. Also, eating enough protein helps us to strengthen our bones, which can prevent injuries in the future, right? And of course, protein plays a huge role in producing certain hormones that are essential for our body to function properly. Moreover, some studies prove that when you overeat protein, you're much less likely to gain weight compared to overeating carbs, for example. So looking at all these benefits, it's easy to see why people got so excited about the protein, right? But at the same time, social media has pushed this whole protein consumption thing so far that it turned into a weird, massive obsession. For example, if you look at some fitness influencers, you will often see recommendations to eat 150 to 200 grams of protein per day. Meanwhile, science actually shows that 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of your body weight is usually enough to maintain your body and support your muscles. And also, not all of them mention that overeating protein can sometimes lead to dehydration, digestive issues, or even stress on your heart, kidneys, and liver. Yep. And then of course we have protein recipes that have completely taken over social media, and honestly the popularity of those recipes makes me feel sometimes like eating the dish without cottage cheese, Greek yogurt or protein powder is an actual crime. Also, let's keep the fact that many of those recipes aren't even tasty, right? But what really gets me is that people started to be scared of normal, regular food. I mean, nowadays you can't just eat a chocolate bar, you're gonna feel guilty because everyone tells you to eat a protein bar. Or for example, you can't just drink a regular milkshake because it has to be a protein shake. Otherwise, why would you drink it? Which obviously is giving off obsessive vibes, and we have to remember that any obsession is first of all obsession, which is not a healthy behavior. And of course, let's not forget that any trend eventually becomes a business, right? And so over the past few years, so many food companies have increased the number of high protein products they sell. Not because we really need that much protein, not because they want us to be healthier or something, but because it makes money. And the obsessive desire of some companies to profit from people's lack of knowledge has reached the point when now we can find even protein greens in supermarkets, which is absolutely insane. So should you eat protein? Definitely, but please remember that it's all about the balance, right? Because to stay healthy, only eating protein is not enough. Our bodies also need carbs, fats, fiber, and of course, enough water. The idea of cheat meals became popular because people started to realize that restrictions aren't really working in the long term, right? And so cheat meals appeared as a kind of solution. And again, the idea is pretty simple here. You have to eat clean and stay disciplined for 6 days, and then on the 7th day, you can finally relax, eat whatever you want, enjoy your food, and enjoy your time. And on one hand, it may sound good, right? Because it feels like a good balance between discipline and pleasure. Plus, physically, it doesn't really harm your body or anything. Sure, you may feel bloated, bloated or a bit heavy the next day, but it's not a big deal, your body will regulate it itself. But on the other hand, when you start eating this way, you actually teach your brain that this cheat meal is your reward, a price for being disciplined. And so food stops being just food and becomes your way to earn pleasure, which is a pretty unhealthy dynamic. Because when you start living waiting for that day, for the permission to finally relax, the rest of the week becomes all about control and restraint. And over time, this pattern teaches your brain that pleasure has to be earned through the effort, struggle, or restriction. You begin to depend on external validations, which is pretty unstable to begin with, right? And so when you get stressed or tired, when your motivation disappears, when your willpower runs out, those external foundations just crash, which often leads to overeating or emotional breakdown. Secondly, this kind of mindset starts going way beyond just nutrition and slowly integrates into other areas of your life. Slowly you start believing that you deserve nice things only when you work hard enough. And so step by step you start feeling guilty and ashamed when you rest, for example, when you do something just because it brings you joy, when you are not productive enough. So basically you teach your brain that you are worthy only when you perform, only when you control yourself, and when you suffer a little, which of course will be negatively reflected not only on your life but your relationships with others. Moreover, this kind of thinking makes it easier for people to manipulate you, through the feeling of guilt and the fear of not being enough. So at the first glance, cheat meals may look like a good balance, right? But in reality, this way of eating creates lots of pressure in your life. It creates a huge cognitive load again, and of course it teaches your body and mind that unconditional self-worth just doesn't exist. And the last trend we're gonna talk about today is intuitive eating, which is actually a pretty interesting one, because unlike all the other trends we've discussed, the ones that are built around control and restriction, intuitive eating is built mostly on trust. A lot of people believe that intuitive eating means listening to your body and its needs, not restricting yourself, and of course giving your body whatever it asks for, which is partially true. But the tiny problem with this approach lies in how our brain actually works, because the main goal of our brain is to survive, right? And what helps us to survive? Comfort, safety, and pleasure. So of course, when you feel tired or stressed, your brain will always look for something that brings relief, something that gives you a quick dopamine hit. For example, foods high in fat and sugar. And especially if you already have complicated relationship with food, if eating something unhealthy is your way to calm yourself down, to get some pleasure, or escape emotions, for example, then your brain, your intuition, of course, is gonna send you signals to do that again, because it just wants to survive. That's why blindly trusting your intuition or every craving is not going to work, because our body and our brain aren't that simple. Intuitive eating is not just another diet, it's actually a skill that requires a deep understanding of how your body and brain works and a healthy, balanced relationship with food. And that, of course, requires time, knowledge, practice, and patience. So to summarize today's podcast, I just want to say that most of the nutrition trends you see online are usually built on restrictions, control, and perfectionism. And while they may give you some temporary results, you have to understand also that it often leads to anxiety, stress, and unhealthy relationships, not just with food, but with your body and yourself first of all. Eating well is not just about appearance or using it as a fuel for your body. It's about being healthy, functional, experiencing life fully, and being present in your own life. Food connects us to culture and to each other, it brings us joy, comfort, energy, and pleasure. That's why instead of chasing the next trend, focus on learning how to accept and love yourself. Because when you stop treating your body purely as a function, when you learn how to respect it, how to listen to its signals, how to honor its space, when you start caring for the body in a way that feels nurturing rather than punishing, that's where true healing, contentment, and growth really begin. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you found something useful or meaningful in it, please feel free to share your takeaways in the comments. As always, don't forget to like this video and follow me here on YouTube not to miss any future uploads, and of course to support my channel and support my work. And I guess today I just want to wish you to treat yourself with kindness, gentleness, and of course love. Thank you for watching today's episode. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I will see you in the next one.